Hello, everyone. It's Sarah Altair, and this is the Midweek Zap. And today I am super excited to have Thomas E. Hanna with us, and he's going to be talking with us about gaining high visibility on the web, and especially with Google+. And I just want to welcome everyone back. I had a wonderful vacation. Just want to let everybody know that. And thank you for all your support, and thank you for being here. So, Thomas, tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right. Well, my name is Thomas. I am the founder of Blog Photo TV, and I know that I'm seeing some of the comments come up over here in the stream, and I recognize some of your names, so it's good to see all of you here. I know I've connected with some of you. Those that I haven't, I'm looking forward to connecting with you in this show as we talk about relationships and visibility. But that's really what I'm about. Is not just about driving views and all these type of things, but making connections that are genuine relationship building connections with people. And so hopefully that's what we'll have the opportunity to explore and dig into today. But I'm really excited to be here, and I'm really thankful that Zara has invited me on to the show. So.
Well, you know, it was like I've been following you for a few months, and every time you post something, I'm like, wow, that is just so spot on. But let's show everybody your mug. I love it.
Okay. Now, a lot of times, if you've seen me on HAs before, I'm usually known for my big wooden Tree of Life mug, but I switched it up today. Today I have Darth Duck. So you can see here's my, in honor of yesterday was Star Wars Tuesday, so I know that we missed that today, but today I have Darth Duck that I'm drinking a blueberry roast French press out of that I made right before the show. So. Cheers to all of you in the audience.
So tell us a little bit about how you got started. You had a blog long before about something else, and all of a sudden you decided to make it more about web presence. What was the push?
Well, yeah. Let me back up a little bit. I had sort of experimented with blogging off and on. For a little while. It was around 2010, 2011 that I started really blogging in earnest. And initially, the reason for that, I was going through seminary at the time, and you go through a lot of ideas when you're in there, and that sort of training is really focused on expanding the way you think about things, so you're faced with a lot of historical ideas that you probably have not considered before, and I wanted a way that I could continue to process through some of these outside of the conversations that I was having there in my graduate program, and so I started blogging and writing about them and connecting with other people so that we could have these sort of conversations, and that developed over time. And it was in 2013, late 2012, where I began really making this shift in thinking to, rather than writing so for people to read, I began writing in order to connect with people and build relationships. So when I started focusing on building relationships, that was where everything began to pivot with that side. And that was a Christian theology, Christian ministry blog, but by September of 2013, it was identified among the top 150 most read ministry blogs worldwide. And around that time, I also started getting emails coming in from people asking me for advice on their own blogs and how to get started with their own stuff. And it was near then that I started shooting my own photography to use for my own blog, and people started asking me about that. So I decided, rather than having, writing a new email article every time I got somebody in, I would go ahead and create a site that had images that people could use, that would have that had answers to a lot of the questions that I was getting, and I would start doing that. And that was where Blog Photo TV launched. I started putting it together in June, launched it in July, and that and when I was teaching people about blogging with that, it took off in ways that really outdistanced what I was expecting, in some exciting ways, but it shows that a lot of the principles that I was talking about continue to work even across mediums, and that was an exciting development for me. But that's how Blog Photo TV really came about.
Okay, and so you started that in July of this year, right?
Yeah, Blog Photo TV launched in July of this year, and that was the same time that my focus for social media initially was exclusively Google+, and so that I could build a presence there and expand from there. And so the Google+ profile launched at the same time, in the beginning of July.
Okay, and then I know that Google+ is focus of how you get the word out, and you have an astounding number of views on Google+. But what is it that made you decide to be on Google+ as the core place to be?
Right. Well, I was familiar with familiar with Facebook, familiar with Twitter, familiar with Google+, but Google+ is sort of unique, I think, in the way that you can not only connect with people that you haven't met before, but connect on a deeper level. Twitter is great for making those initial connections with people that you haven't engaged with before, but you're kind of limited to 140 characters. So, you can't really develop easily, really strong relationships like you can on Google+. Facebook, you can develop those relationships, but a lot of times you're kind of limited in your connections to those people that are already in your friends list or who friended you, so it makes it difficult to reach out beyond where you are to make those connections. Facebook, a lot of times, its strongest point is that you have offline connections that find sort of a digital home. Google Plus allows you to reach out, make connections with new people, begin networking with people you never would have connected with otherwise, build those relationships in real sustainable ways, and then continue to expand out from there. And it provides a lot of opportunities for that. And then it leverages, the type of engagement that you get. You start getting engagement on Google Plus, and all of a sudden, the people that follow you, you start showing up in their search results because Google still shows cards with Google Plus posts. So you start showing up there. You start showing up in their stream because people plus or comment on your stuff, and you show up as recommended posts to their viewers. If you get enough engagement, you show up in what's hot, and then you start really getting visibility. So the more engagement you get on Google Plus, the more Google continues to put that out to people. So to me, it's just a much more solid platform for building those relationships.
Okay, and I just wanted to share. Whoops, I've lost it in the stream here. Here we go. So, and Lee Rickler brought.
I want some biscuits, Dave. What's up?
And Dave,
you had him at the back. Whatever, dude. I see how it is. I remember that.
And another one I wanted to share as well, but I'm not seeing it now. Anyway, I'm glad everybody is here today, and don't forget to post your questions for Thomas. So you got started, you got engaged, and you love the engagement, and I have to say I totally agree with you. I love the in-depth conversations you can really have with people, and also the new friendships that you make.
Mm-hmm.
It's really astounding how people you've never met in person, you develop some very caring relationships with them. And they're all over the world. And one of the things that was really fun for me on my vacation was actually meeting people in the UK that I had known on Google Plus and meeting them face to face. It was just totally wonderful. It was just very, very exciting. Now, you had a couple of things that you were going to share with us today. I saw your post earlier. So, you want to share your word?
Well, sure. And if you've connected with the stuff I have, you're going to see this come up a lot. But the word is relationships. It's that easy. But there's a reason for that. And a lot of times when we talk about social media, you hear people talk about building relationships, but that somehow gets garbled in its translation. And a lot of times people see that, and I certainly did for a long time. And I know by the way that I've interacted with other people that others early on read it this way as well. But people talk about relationships, and that becomes interpreted as, I want to be likable so that people like me and are willing to buy my stuff or help me out in the ways that I want to ask them to do. And so it's not really about genuine relationships that people are building. It becomes about how do we convince people to do what we want them to do.
Yeah, so they're manipulative.
Mm-hmm. And so a lot of times that's how a lot of this winds up panning out. And I mean, I have to preface that by saying that a lot of times, a lot of us that are on here are marketers. So we do have a goal that we want to do. We're trying to convince people that our products are worthwhile, that they want to connect with what we're doing, that they want to become evangelists and share the message that we have. So we do have goals in this. But there's a difference between building relationships with people for the purpose of an agenda and building relationships with thoughtful people that are part of our industry because we want to make those connections and we see value in the relationships themselves. And that's really one of the core values that I bring in with Blog Photo TV. And this is, I mentioned in one thing that in one of the posts that I made in preparing for this, that there's something that I've never shared with anybody in any of the Hangouts that I have. And if you look at the mission statement that I have on my profile and with Blog Photo TV, the mission is this. It is to help content creators to help provide content creators with the tools, resources, and training they need to stand out online. But beneath that, there's a hidden value here in that, and sort of a hidden mission is that I also want to reclaim the power of relationships, of personal relationships in an increasingly impersonal medium, because a lot of times we use social media in such an impersonal way that we are trying to broadcast at people rather than connecting with people. And all of the tools that we talk about, all of the techniques, guest blogging, blog amplification, all of the influencer outreach, all of these things that you hear people talk about, the thread that makes any of them actually work is genuine relationships. And I'll give you an example. When I started connecting with people on Google+, when I launched Blog Photo TV, one of the things, I've talked about this before, one of the things I did was I figured I identified 15 people that I said, these are people that I value what they have to say. These are people that are connected with the industry that I'm wanting to be connected in with. These are people that are respected, and these are people that already have relationships with each other, so they already have a network that's built out. I identified 15 people. I put all of them in a Google Plus notification circle so that I would be, and I turned that notification on. When I say notification circle, a circle that notifies me anytime that they publish anything, not a circle so that I'm notifying them, but a circle so that anytime they publish anything, I get a notification with that, and if it's anything relevant that I can comment on, I engage with and I comment on that. And I'm seeing some questions come up, and I love those, and I'm going to get to some of those in just a second. So I began connecting with people there. That helped me immediately build impactful relationships that allowed me to move into really enjoying people, but also being seen as valuable in the industry. And what happened as a result of that is I began connecting with people like Anna Hoffman. Now, if you look at Anna Hoffman's site, she rarely has anybody guest post on there. She doesn't usually like to put a lot of guest articles on her site. But I built a relationship with her, and so when I approached her and asked her about that, she was happy to actually publish a guest article of mine. So we talk about guest blogging, and the relationships open opportunities and doorways there because we've built genuine relationships. The way we build relationships with the people that are engaging with your content helps build that trust. So all of these, the central thread that unites everything that we do is actually building relationships with people. And that's one of the goals that I really have.
Okay, and then I just wanted to bring a couple of things up. Terry Leigh Britton, Hangouts and Hangouts on Air certainly made the world smaller and friendships warmer.
Yes, well said, Terry.
Yeah, that is very true, Terry. And then Sean O Dulainne, hope I'm saying that correctly, Sean. A quick question, trying to motivate some 2,000 B&Bs across the pond to connect on Google Plus and claim their businesses for a tourism offering, only if you have the time. So if you have any suggestions about...
Yeah, well, and that's a great, and I think if I'm understanding this correctly, Sean, what you're saying is that you've got... you've identified this large grouping of businesses that you want to connect with on Google+, but they're not on Google+, so you're trying to motivate them to get on Google+, and you're asking how to do that. And I think that's a good question. I'm going to answer that in two ways. First of all, one of the things that Google+ does is it allows you to make connections with people that you wouldn't already have those connections with. So in many ways, this means I look for people that are on Google+ and build those connections there. And there's other places that I'll eventually expand into. The relationships that I build here on Google+, a lot of them are also present on Twitter or these other ones. So when I expand into Twitter like I'm doing now, I already have relationships built there. But in building relationships with brands, I focus on brands that are already here as opposed to going outside and bringing them here. But there's also so I say that, but I also want to value what you're saying because there is a value to being on Google+. In particular, businesses that have a brand page on Google+ have access to location, which means they're showing up in location search and stuff like that, which is really important for a tourism business, that when people are local and they're looking for things around where they are, those businesses that have brand pages that are tied into their local presence show up in that search. And that's going to really help their business. It helps them gain control over Google reviews on their stuff. So there's a lot of reasons for them to be on Google+, and I would share with them those reasons as opposed to the reasons that benefit them for being on Google+. And then you can help, make that a reality. But that's different than saying, I want to motivate you to be on Google+ in order to connect with the tourism stuff I'm doing. That's saying, do you realize the power that this has to benefit you and your business? Because now we're focused on how do we benefit them. And that's an important little transition. I hope that answers that question fairly well.
We have quite a few questions now, and this one's from William Rock. With relationships, how do you keep them happy? I'm switching your emphasis here, William, a little, but I think you actually talked a little bit about that before.
Well, and that's the nature of relationships, I mean, let me change the paradigm a little bit here. If I'm building a relationship, let's take social media out for just a moment, and let's just look at real life. If I'm out and I'm building relationships with people at, when I was in college, and I build a circle of friends there in college, or I am, or I'm at my workplace and I build a circle of friends there at the workplace. What I usually am building is I'm building relationships with people that I connect with, that I resonate with, that my personality gets, and they get my personality, and so we mesh. so there's almost a vetting process to friendships, right? Because there are people that I'm going to butt heads with, and I really don't enjoy spending time with them. They don't enjoy spending time with me, and we're not going to have that connection. So the relationships that I build with people, we build because we connect. And that's important to recognize, because usually those are also the people you want to do business with. We have to deal with people in business. We have to deal with people that we don't like spending time with. I mean, that's just an unfortunate reality of our world. But typically, what we want to find when we're looking for clients, we're trying to find a good match as well. And so that process of building those relationships with people that you're making connections with also helps down the road. So we're not just looking at trying to make everybody happy. We're trying to identify the needs. We're trying to find ways that we can serve and meet those needs. We're trying to know what their pain points are so that we can make those connections. But we're also being genuine ourselves and making real, honest connections, as opposed to trying to get people to just like us so we can get them to do what we want them to do. And Alexandra, you have a question as well. Seeing value in relationships outside of business value, you mean? Yes, that's exactly what I mean. Like, I want to enjoy being with people, not just because I can, they can expand my message or because they can buy something from me. I like building connections with people because I like people. And so a lot of the folks that I connect with that like to share my stuff, and in fact, Zara here, when Zara and I made connections, we connected not because I was like, hey, let me get you to have me on your show. It was, she liked the stuff that I was doing. I've enjoyed some of the shows that she's been on. We've had some conversations, and now that transitions into other things, but that was almost agendaless. Mary Fletcher. No, okay. Go ahead, Zara. I'm like stomping all over you. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Don't worry about it. As long as we get the questions answered. Thomas, how often should I share a new blog post on Google+, and who should I share it with? Public, circles, etc. Thank you.
There's two questions that you're kind of embedding in there, and I want to make sure that I'm answering what you're asking. I think what you're asking is about sharing on Google+, but I think you're also asking how often should I write and publish a new blog post. And so those are two different questions. I'm going to try to answer both of those. But let me talk first of all about sharing on Google+. Whenever I publish an article, I'm sharing that on Google+, and I'm also going to be resharing that. And usually the cycle for resharing is you share it when it's published, share it again about 8 hours later, share it again about a day later, share it again about 7 days, about 7 days later, and then after that, you start looking at repurposing. Which means that you can just change the medium. Maybe I'm going to do a video about it, or an infographic about it, or a quote graphic about it, but you start looking at how you repurpose stuff. But that initial share is usually about 8 hours a day, 7 days, and then repurpose. Now, I say that, but that also, if that's all that you're sharing on there is just your posts, then there's another challenge going on here, because you need to break that up with curation. There are usually two ratios that people often give. One is 60-40, the other is 80-20, but both of those basically mean you're sharing other people's content more than you're sharing your own. That does a couple of things. That allows your stream to be seen as valuable. That demonstrates your expertise in the industry, and that makes you a team player. So you're not just self-promoting all the time. And then people want to hear what you have to say, because as you're commenting on other people's stuff and sharing things with your own introduction, then people begin to like that. The other side of that question is how often should you publish, and particularly early on, my thoughts on that is you want to have consistency, so I would say publish at least once a week. But I would spend more of my time focusing on building relationships off your blog than focusing on producing a bunch of content that people aren't reading. Make sure you have stuff on your site so when people go there, they have value. but focus your time on building relationships. I hope that answers that question. Deborah has another one. I'll let Zara go ahead and ask that out.
Okay, so Deborah Rock she has a good question. Google is against duplicate content, as we know through all the penalties with each new update. But is there duplicate content on Google Plus if you were to copy information from a blog?
Mm-hmm. And I'm assuming when you say copying information from a blog, you're talking about your blog. There's a couple ways you're saying it, Deborah. When I publish a blog post, I usually have the same intro that I use in my site. I use on Google Plus, and that's different than republishing the entire article. In which case, now you have duplicate things. But usually, having a piece of another article isn't anything. Now, let me make sure that you understand. First of all, I'm going to share with you my understanding of duplicate content, but I'm not an SEO guy. The SEO guy that you if you want like a solid search engine optimization answer to that, the person that you want to check out is going to be Mark Traphagen and Eric Enga. And in fact, if I remember correctly, they not too long ago published an article that looked at that very question. My understanding is that you're not really too worried about the duplication error, the duplication penalty on Google Plus and on a blog post. But having said that, you typically also, if you're going to publish something on your blog, you don't want to take that whole thing and publish it as a post on Google Plus either, because that's not helping you get people to your blog. You might take an excerpt of it, in which case you're not dealing with Google penalties at all anyhow. But you're not going to usually want to republish the whole thing anyway, because that's not benefiting you. What you'll usually want to do, publish something on your blog, promote it on social media. And there are some reasons to sometimes publish things specifically on social media, but usually you don't want to have them in both places.
Yeah, and then Terry has a follow-up to that. Deborah Rock, Matt Cutts made that clear concerning sharing being considered duplicate content. Sharing is still caring.
Yeah, so there you go. So it's not, you're not going to deal with the duplicate content penalty. And like I said, Mark Traphagen and again, they just recently published an article that actually looks at that whole question in some detail.
Yeah, they're good folks to follow in general about Google Plus.
Okay, so and in fact, Deborah asked a follow-up here to clarify. She says, if I was to copy from your blog to share it on my Google Plus account. Well, again, if you're going to copy from somebody else's blog to share it on there, you're typically going to want to highlight maybe a section of the article or something like that. You don't usually ever want to copy the entire article, even if that's not. First of all, I don't think you're going to wind up with a duplicate penalty if you publish something and somebody scrapes that and publishes it on there. You deal with scraping stuff even with blogs. People and Google is fairly sophisticated in figuring that out. But if you're looking at sharing somebody's stuff, just for social etiquette, you'll usually want to share maybe a piece or something like that. You don't want to reshare the entire thing, just because that's not very polite anyway.
And I think this is something that goes along with your philosophy as well. From William Rock, he says, what she's saying is don't use the same thing, create a new teaser article.
Yeah. In fact, what I do, and Zara knows this because she was just in my my Launch Your Blog course, and I talked about this in there. The cycle that I use for promoting my articles, I know what I'm writing ahead of time. So, and usually by the day before my article, if it's not already done, it's pretty close. So that my last part is predominantly revision. But knowing that, I will take the graphic that I am going to use for that article, and the night before, I will publish that graphic with an intro to the article on Google+, and I'll say on there, I'll kind of do a teaser for that article, and I'll say this is coming up tomorrow, stay tuned, and then there will be a little call to action on the bottom that says, if you want to be notified when this post goes live, plus this post or leave a comment, I'll add you to my notification circle. Now what that does, people interact with images a lot more than they interact with links, but they don't click through as much. So what that does is that allows me to say these people are interested in it. I add them to a notification circle. When I publish my article the next day with a different teaser, I will then add that notification circle and click that little box that says notify by email. The only time I will use that is for notifying those people who have told me, either by engaging with that post, either posting it or leaving a comment, that they want to be notified. So it's a permission-based thing. But I'll include that in there, and then they get notified as a result, and that drives a lot of that visibility for that post as well.
And that's a great way of collecting really interested people into a circle on Google+. It's sort of like creating an email list, but in a different way. Then Terry Leigh, another comment. Comments are to share information, thoughts, build relationships, etc. But as Thomas E. Hanna points out, doing posts that serve your friends is a great, fantastic idea.
Yeah, I mean, it's relationships again. If you're building relationships, things happen, and you make connections. And you know what else? You enjoy it because people are fun.
Well, fun. Let's say what Lee is saying. Lee Rickler says, repurpose on purpose. What I mean by that is create the content relevant to the tool. It's no good tweeting an excerpt at the same time. Don't just post the URL on Google+.
Right, you're right, and what Lee's actually talking about is the different mediums that you share for, tailoring what you share to those mediums. So I might use like a line quote from an article, or just the headline with a link for Twitter. I'll usually use an intro for Google+, shorter intro maybe for Facebook, and some other things like that. But you tailor that sharing to the thing. Now that's a little different than repurposing, where you're shifting like the medium. So if I published an article and I decide later to repurpose that, I might take the content of that article and add an infographic. So now what I'm doing is I'm still utilizing some of that same material, but I'm providing a different production medium now that connects with people in a new and a fresh way, and it adds longevity to the post, and it's able to help refresh some of that. So, but that's usually down the road. That's not your initial sharing cycle.
Yeah, and then Monika Schmidt is just confirming what you said earlier. Offering notification is an awesome, kind behavior.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what people are interested in it, and they specify that they want to be notified when that goes live, then that helps to get them notified.
And then here's a perfect example of relationship building in an HOA, because Deborah's been asking questions and she's been getting a lot of answers. And she says, I know some people are wondering why I do not just ask my husband, William Rock, and I do, but I also want to learn as much as I can from multiple perspectives. Thank you all for your help with my questions.
And I think that's a fantastic approach, Deborah, because of the fact that you're going to get different views. Anytime people are on social media, we're trying different things, and so you're going to have different approaches to different thought ways, different ways that people do things. And you try them, and you hold on to what works. And if it doesn't work, you toss it out.
Yeah, and then Frank Gainsford, you found us. I'm so sorry you had trouble with the YouTube, but anyway, you're here, and thank you very much. He says, Thomas E. Hanna, promoting is the key, as this is seen as link building of the quality kind by Google. When promoting your content, be sure to tell your intended target market why that is good information that they need to consume.
Yeah, and so what you're talking about is communicating the benefit. And Frank, Whenever I write an article and I create that headline, I recognize up front that headline is my sales pitch. That is the one most important sentence in your article, because that's what tells people whether or not they want to read it. And so when I create a headline, rather than that headline being a summary of what is in the content, that headline tells people why they need to read it. So I'll have articles like the one I published last Thursday was I think I still have it right up here, 5 simple ways to improve your writing overnight. Now, the whole thing with that was learn how to edit well. If you are intentional about your editing and taking the time to edit it, your writing is going to just dramatically improve immediately. And I go through and I talk about the process of editing. And that will improve your writing. But I don't say right there in the headline even that this is about editing necessarily. I tell people what they're going to get out of it. By the time they finish reading this article, you're going to know how to immediately make your writing better. And that's what my headline communicates. And then I make sure that the article delivers on that promise. And sometimes there's going to be overlap, and I'll mention, we'll deal with the topic in the headline. But the important thing about the headline is that I'm communicating that benefit and making that sales pitch as to why you need to read the article.
Okay, and then we have feedback from Mark Barrus. Thomas E. Hanna, I love the pre-post notification teasers. Great idea.
Mark, I stole that from Copyblogger. I'd love to take full credit for that. But if you watch Copyblogger, does the same thing. They will often, when they have an article coming up, they'll publish a teaser, and they'll say, if you want to be notified, sign up. And they actually link right back to their email list. I tried to kind of lubricate that process utilizing the notification system in Google+, and then connecting them to my email list so that it just makes it a lot easier to hit plus and link through and sign up. So I knew I could grab more people that way. But yeah, I totally stole that idea from them. And you know what? If you find things that work, steal the idea and run with it. Your lesson for the day.
That's just so true. Because it's like your audience is your audience, and it's going to work for you and for them. And then I've been wanting to bring this up for a while. Karen V. Chin, Amen Thomas Hanna, I don't like the broadcasting of me, but about the genuine relationships that happen because of common interests.
Yeah, and I mean, you share your stuff, so you are going to be talking about it, but those connections that you make and the way that you make yourself a resource to people, not just by saying, here, let me give you my thoughts all the time. You make yourself a resource by gathering the thoughts of the people in the industry that are leaders that know what they're talking about and providing it. It's like if you go and you take a college course, you have professors that make all of their books are the ones that they wrote, because they get a commission off of that. But the really good professors may have a book or two of theirs, but a lot of the books that you are having to study are the thought leaders in the field outside of them. And that way you get this span of thought and information relevant to what you're trying to accomplish, and you find it gathered in one place, and that's what makes that a valuable resource. And if your social media stream, people go to it and they see, okay, here's something from this person, here's something from this other site, and here's something from Copyblogger and Search Engine Journal or Anna Hoffman and whatever else, and they find this there, and it's all relevant to the area of expertise you're communicating. Then they want to come back to that. They want to follow what you're doing, because you're not just self-promoting, you're actually providing a valuable resource.
We're coming kind of short to the end of our time, but there's a couple of things. Frank Gainsford has a really great point. People need to remember that there is a big difference between repurposing and sharing the same content.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there is. And, I mean, you're going to want to share something several times right after it's first published, because not everybody's going to see it the first time you share it. But finding ways to repurpose it, like I said, makes that fresh and adds longevity to your article. You have a fantastic audience. There are Holy heck, like this stuff is lighting up. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, it really is. This is the Super Zapster audience, and they are just fantastic. And one more thing from Terry, and I wish I had a knack for good headlines like some people do. Do you have any help for tips for people who struggle with their headlines?
Yeah. Okay. So, first of all, great comment. The great thing about the knack for writing headlines is that headlines, like any other skill, can be learned, and you learn it through practice. So, let me give you two resources real quick. I'll see if I can get this in the comments right after the show. But two fantastic resources for developing headlines are Copyblogger has an ebook on headlines. And you can just sign up to their site and you get free access. You just download it and you got it right there. John Morrow at boostblogtraffic.com, I think is what it is, who, by the way, was one of the original members of Copyblogger when Copyblogger launched, also has a fantastic resource called Headline Hacks. And in fact, I know that Damian Farnsworth, who's one of like the major writers for Copyblogger, uses that resource from John Morrow when he writes his stuff. So that's an amazing resource as well that will help get you some of that. But one of the other things, particularly early on when you're developing headlines, is to put the same amount of time into developing your headline that you would put into editing your article or crafting your article, because that's that most important sentence. So come up with 10 to 15 different possible headlines that communicate those benefits, and you'll find that they start off kind of weird, and then they kind of refine by the time you're down to like 11, 12, 13, and then you can go back and identify your key one that you want to use, and that practice not only will help those individual headlines be better, it will help develop you as a headline writer, so that you can be able to come up with powerful headlines quickly as well. So those are a couple of things that you can do with that.
Thanks very much. I have just want to close with one quote here. As far as relationships go, oh, I'm sorry, this is from Jessica Maynard. Hey,
Jessica.
As far as relationships go, it makes me think of my son. His best friends are not at school. They are people he has met or was friends with and have maintained connections through his Xbox. They will actually FaceTime on their phone, then play. Very different way than ever before.
Yeah, I mean, how cool is that? And you know, we talk about these relationships. I've connected with people on Google Plus, and Zara, you were just talking about this when you were on your vacation. Because of Google Plus, I connected with people here. Then I went to the Florida Blogging Conference, which was nearby here. There, at the Florida Blogging Conference, I actually met in person Carolyn Capron, Greg Trujillo, and Chef Dennis Litley. They have a group that they hang out with. So I started joining them, which introduced me to Les Dawsey. I got to have lunch with him, and Mark Ensign, who are doing incredible things. Got to meet them in next week, actually. I am flying out to Arizona, which is where my family is, and while I'm out there, I sent a message out to Kristen Drysdale and Ben Fisher out there, and so I'll be doing lunch with them, and they sent that email and started inviting a host of other folks that are here on Google Plus, and so we're having a hurl out there, and all of a sudden these relationships that are just sort of like little social interactions here transcend the medium and build into actual connections in real life, and you enjoy spending time with people, and it has the side effect of benefiting your business. How cool. But those relationships, they're fulfilling in and of themselves because they're genuine relationships with genuine people. And you learn to love people, you learn to love relationships, the other things begin to line up, but you're focused on actually caring for people, actually connecting with people, actually building relationships, and actually becoming a resource that benefits others. And you suddenly find that things start falling into place.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here today. This has just been jam-packed with information, and we had some great questions and comments from the audience. So this was a great way to do re-entry after my vacation. So thank you so much, Thomas. Any last words you have for everybody?
I'd love to connect with you guys more. If I'm going to try to linger for a little while in the comments here. I'll probably be getting back to it later tonight. I have to get out of here pretty quickly after the show is done. But I'd love to continue connecting with you guys. If those of you that I have not already connected with, make sure you connect up with me over on my page, which is Thomas E. Hanna Blog Photo TV here, and I'd love to get to know you a little bit better. You can also get on and become one of the insiders. Zara's an insider. And you can do that over again at Blog Photo TV. And when you sign up for that, those are people that I know that I'm wanting to connect up with, and we have a little private community as well that we connect in. So I'd love to build those relationships, get to know you a little bit better. Make sure you drop me a message. And thank you guys for not only having me on here, Zara, but the community here for just the level of engagement and questions and everything else. This was fantastic. Like, this was fantastic, Zara. So, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. It's my pleasure, and I know we'd love to have you come back in some date in the future. Thank you very much. Thank you, Super Zapsters. You just got confirmation of how great you are, and we'll see you next week. Thanks so much.